evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is McKaylee. I work at Tattered Cover Bookstore. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here tonight with us. Thank you for being a part of our virtual community. Tattered Cover Bookstore is known for being a staple in the Denver metro area and being a place that is for the community, for gathering, for smelling books. and we've been around for 50 years now. And this year, it's easy to say, has been one of the hardest on us in 2020. And so we thank you for being here virtually with us. We wouldn't be here without you the past year or the past 50. So we're excited to have you a part of our virtual community, so that hopefully later this year or into next, we can start gathering together and be more in person. But for now, this is so exciting to have you here, and we thank you for your support. For those of you who may be watching who are outside of the Denver metro area, Tattered Cover Bookstore is a local independent bookstore with 4 locations in the Denver metro area. Right now, 3 out of the 4 are open because our 4th one is moving, as a lot of you know. Downtown is moving just 4 blocks closer to Coors Field in the new McGregor Square, and that should open in mid-May or late May or so. And then our children's location, our new children's location just got announced in Stanley Marketplace in Aurora, which is very exciting. And that is going to be opening later this year as well. But the other stores are open right now, which you can come and visit us as long as you're wearing your mask over your mouth and your nose. You can come browse for about 90 minutes or so. But if you're outside of the area, or you're like me and you just want to shop in your pajamas, 100% acceptable. You can do that at tatteredcover.com. Also on tatteredcover.com is our events page, tatteredcover.com/event. We have amazing events coming up. There are so many awesome ones. We've got poetry events, as April is National Poetry Month. We have great business ones, and cookbooks. Nigella Lawson is coming. Check that out at tatteredcover.com/event. And so I want to also let you know that closed captioning is enabled for those who might want it or need it. There's a black bar down at the bottom of the screen with a button labeled CC on it. Click that button and closed captioning is enabled if you want it or need it. And now it is my honor to introduce our author tonight, Chloe O. Davis. I was talking to her just pre-show before we went live, and I'm very excited for this interview. And this book, everybody needs to get a copy again at tatteredcover.com or in our stores, The Queen's English. And so a little bit about our author tonight. Chloe Davis is a proud Black bisexual woman and debut author who works in the entertainment industry in New York. A graduate of Hampton University and Temple University, she has centered her creative platform on amplifying the narratives of Black culture and heightening the awareness of the LGBTQIA+ community. Davis's work as a dancer, actor, and creative has allowed her to travel to all 50 states and internationally. In addition to performing at premier theaters across the country, such as New York City Center, the Apollo Theater, the Kennedy Center, the Muni, the Berkeley Repertory Theater, she has appeared on PBS Great Performances with Porgy and Bess at the Metropolitan Opera, Jesus Christ Superstar live in concert on NBC, and Southern Landscape performed by the Philadelphia Dance Company, Phil Danko. In tandem with performing, Chloe O. Davis has spent 15 years researching, writing, and creating The Queen's English, the dictionary for LGBTQIA+ lingo and colloquial phrases. She believes this dictionary is a starting point for important conversations around inclusivity, sexuality, gender expression, and identity. And she has done that and more with this book. And we are celebrating The Queen's English tonight. It's my honor to welcome Chloe Davis to our screen here. And she'll turn on her video in just a moment there. Get her. There she is. Hello,
Chloe. Hi, I'm beaming. I'm blushing. That introduction was amazing. Wow. Thank you so much for your words in that introduction. I'm really, I'm embarrassed.
Well, it's true. This book is such a testament, and you can see the hard work in it, not only in the book, but in the website. And we're going to get into all of that. But I'd love it if you could just start with, and I think the introduction gave us a little bit of it, but if you could start with, what is this book?
Yes. What is The Queen's English? Well, The Queen's English is a celebration of over 800 terms used to describe our collective gay and queer experience, or the LGBTQIA+ experiences and identities. It is just a celebration of the myriad of identities and the spectrum of humanity. It is just really like a tool, a resource that is used to empower identities, empower expressions, but it's also a tool and resource that is used to really dive into those important conversations, like I said, about inclusivity and diversity and intersectionality. So that way we are all evolving and growing and empowering one another. So yes, it's a celebration. It's a celebration of human identity, but more so like visibility of so many identities and, so many, just lifestyles and individuals. So I think that's just what it is. It's a celebration of identity.
Sorry, I was muted because I have background noise. There was construction, but I wanted to say I think a celebration is the perfect description of this, with how beautiful the book is and the content that's within it. So I have to ask, over 800 terms,
Yes.
Where did you even start with research for this?
So I started this dictionary in 2006. So we're talking 15 years ago. And you mentioned before Philadanco, the Philadelphia Dance Company. That was my first professional job. And I was in a company full of amazing people, but it's a Black dance company, and a lot of men identified as gay, and they were also part of the ballroom scene. So when I say the ballroom scene, we know this community now more so mainstream because of, RuPaul Drag Race, and because of Pose and, Legendary, as well as, the amazing documentary Paris is Burning. But the ballroom scene was created in New York City in the late, 1960s, early 1970s, because there needed to be a space that really affirmed and empowered Black identity, Black, queer, trans, gay identity, and also, Latinx identity, queer identity, right? Because of course, what we experience now, racism, right? Homophobia, transphobia. It was a space that needed to really supplement the self-worth of Black and people of color and Latinx gay and queer people. And so this was a social scene. This was a scene that truly wanted to empower each other, wanted to mentor young people, because a lot of times we don't always have these conversations, but a lot of, young gay, queer, trans people are sometimes rejected, from, biological families because of their identity, right? And so again, it was this social setting that empowered, all individuals. But what was beautiful about it is this creativeness, right? And what spawned was this amazing language that we hear so much now, right? Everyone knows what shade and read and beat and fierce and slay, right? We know those words. It's very mainstream now, but those words actually were birthed in the ballroom scene. So I say all that to say, whoop, whoop, 2006, right? These were terms that I was also learning or new, right? And I think it was very much, I was, I'm like, well, what does this word mean? What does that word mean? Because the language was so vibrant, it was so contagious. It was so creative. And so I just wanted to know more. And, it was this game that we would kind of play on our tour bus because we traveled a lot. And when I would hear a word and I would just hear how it's used, then I would feed it back with this quote unquote academic definition, or we like to play around and say Oxford Dictionary, definition. And so it was like a play. And eventually I said, this is a fully developed, language. It needs to be documented, like there needs to be a dictionary. Jokingly, I said, but I was actually kind of charged to do it. And, my friends were like, well, yes, when you write it, and actually it was a friend, he said, when you write it, call it the Queen's English. So that's actually how it got its name. So
ask about the title, because it's a freaking clever title. I'm so glad that you mentioned that story, because I was dying to know where that play on words came from.
So that's the start of it. And honestly, I said I was writing a dictionary, but I think I was playing, you know what I mean? I had my pen and piece of paper. And I'm also a nerd, you know what I mean? I'm getting it down, I'm writing it down, I'm really into it. But what I really loved was the connection that I was having then, with my friends and my peers to really dive into language and why, and the etymology of how the word was created, and the meaning and the backstory. I was so enthralled in that, and I just kept diving down the rabbit hole, wanting to know more. And I think the other thing that happened is, because I'm an artist, I'm a performing artist. I've done concert, dance, film, television, and I'm also in the musical theater world. So when I transitioned kind of out of concert dance into the musical theater world, my environment changed. Before, it was mostly Black, and when I went to musical theater, it was mostly white, right? And I learned a different language. I started learning more about the white gay male language, right? So I learned about otters and twinks and wolves and bears, the bear community. And I also started to learn about the leather community, and also, sexual liberation and BDSM and role playing and all of that. So what was happening is, I was like, wow, I was so elated to just know that, yes, even then this was before the Q, right? So in this LGBT community, because we're talking 2006, 2008, 2010, it's like, it's so vast. It's beyond that. There's diversity, there's intersectionality, because we also have to talk about experiences when it comes to race, right? Like, an experience as being a white lesbian is very different from an experience of being a Black lesbian, and an experience of being, AAPI and queer is very different from being a Black bisexual, right? So, which is what I identify as. So, that was the thing I was diving into, was that there was just so much to uncover. And I think that's the impulse and the heartbeat of it. And I think I was just constantly, I don't know, I think I was stepping into a purpose, but I think the communication and the conversation I would have with so many different individuals when we talked about words and identity and lifestyle and inclusion were just so powerful, where I was like, I just have to keep documenting. So here we are 15 years later, and over 800 terms later, and it's here. And I feel really good about this, right? Because what I like to celebrate, I keep talking about, I say it, diversity and intersectionality and inclusivity. I say those words because I really mean it. Because a lot of times when we want to articulate like a culture or a situation, we can't do it in a monolithic way, because that's incorrect. And so I wanted to make sure that if anyone picked up their book, they saw themselves, right? I wanted those who are of non-binary, gender non-conforming, trans identities to see themselves. But even in that large umbrella, to go dive deeper in, to say like bigender and agender and null and neutros, you know what I mean? To really dive into these identities that we call like minority identities. But I want that representation. I want people to be seen and visible. And I also want to encourage those who are on the journey of evolution within their own identity to have a source, to have a resource.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have a resource, right? So I like openly, I didn't meet someone who identified as bisexual until my early 20s, right? So I also created this so that I can affirm myself,
Yeah.
to have like a resource where I'm like, okay, I have the agency to stand firm in myself, because I know that my story, I'm not alone, my story is not muted. My identity is not muted. It's very here. It's welcoming, other people identify like this as well. So yeah, that's the journey, with with the Queen's English and my journey.
Well, and it ends with this, not, it doesn't end. This is a stopping point at the moment. I believe that your journey will obviously still continue with this, but this is a beautiful stopping point that you've given us, and this beautiful gift here. And, for me, even having you include things like demisexual and asexual, which are things that I know that in my life I've had to explain to people. And this is such a beautiful resource to be able to give that, not to mention those that I didn't know all 800 terms in there. There was no way I could have. And even still, I've learned something from there. And I thought I was educated to some degree, but this was beautiful. And you learned so much from it. But that being said, I want to ask about labels. And can you talk a little bit more about language and labels,
Yeah.
and this need you felt for having a language with which to express yourself, when some people feel that that's not a need or something that they don't necessarily want?
Absolutely. And that's valid. The thing about labels is it is not necessarily a tool that defines you. It is a tool that you can use to empower you. And some may need it and some may not. Like, I know it empowered me, right? To dive in, to say, oh, I am bisexual, and to say, oh, I was, heteroflexible, and then I was bi-curious, and oh, I am a demisexual as well. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh yes, I am biromantic as well, right? So, these labels again are not to bind you to anything, because I continue to stress that identity is an evolution. That, to me, that is the only normality, is this evolution and change of oneself, right? Not heteronormativity, not homonormativity, but the normality actually is evolution. And I think that's what I want to empower and acknowledge and educate. So it's not necessarily about the labels. What it is, it's about the identities that are being represented. And so whether you label yourself that or not, it is an identity that is represented, that is given this visibility, that is given this more understanding of what this is. Because here's the other thing, like, labels, right? Labels are something that one puts on themselves, not what other people put on them. That if however someone identifies, then we have to respect that, right? So if I in my bio, and I'm saying I am bisexual, right? That is a label that I use, that I feel is affirming to me, and so that's what we use, right? So for instance, if someone, let's talk about queer for a second. I think that's a great word.
Yes,
So
please.
queer is this term that a lot of members of the community of this larger gay and queer spectrum use, because they feel affirmed, right? They feel like it really validates their expression of being, it's a catchphrase of being non-heteronormative, right? So whether it's being non-heterosexual or non-cisgender, right? So this word queer is just this umbrella word. So there are many members of the community that use it and feel empowered. But in the same breath, there are still many members of the community that don't feel empowered by the word queer, because queer was once, and still to some, a derogatory term, right? And to identify those who were homosexual, right? So there are some people, of members of the community, that like, this is not for me. So that's again the power of identity and labels. Like, we just can't go around and say, this is how someone identifies. So that's why I say it's okay to ask, right? And especially, but I think more so, well, not to say it's okay to ask, because we have to allow people to explain what they want to explain. But I think it's more affirming if we listen to how someone articulates who they are in all of their identity, right? And it's not just about labels. And I talk about this more too when I have terms like BIPOC or POC, or QTPOC, which means queer trans people of color. That's another thing about labels, right? I identify as Black. Not to say that POC doesn't represent me, but I prefer Black, right? And so that's another thing about labels. So it's not just about someone's sexual orientation or gender identity. It's your whole beautiful, unique self, right? And that includes our expression, our identity, our romantic attraction, our sexual attraction or non-sexual attraction, our relationship orientation, our ethnicity, our race. That's what makes us all unique. So, labels, again, it's not about I'm stuck to say like, this is who I am and I have to use these labels, or that anyone has to use these labels. It's just something that can, help us organize thought and understand more about our individual because of this label. And we can maybe understand more about their backgrounds, or their culture or their heritage or traditions, things like that. But again, you're right. And what I love to talk about in the dictionary, I invite all interpretations, right? Because they are valid. And if someone chooses to use a label and someone doesn't, valid, and still should be respected. And here's another thing, because experiences are different. If someone chooses to use a label but interprets it different, again, valid, right? Because we all have different experiences, we have a different journey and different interpretations, and that's okay.
And if they change their label, that's also okay and deserves to be
Valid.
respected as well and is valid. Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
I want to talk about the art of this book
Mhm.
and the design of this book. It's so colorful and wonderful.
Mhm.
And not only that, if you go on the website of the Queen's English website, there's these beautiful pictures with labels. They're literally from a label maker, which is brilliant, and swats of color on cheeks, on arms, on hands. And I want to talk about taking something that is a written medium and turning it visual. What was that process like for you?
Wow, thank you. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, but I'm an artist. I'm making, I've made my author debut, of course, and I'm in this literary world, and I'm very honored to be here. But I am a performer. I'm an artist. So when I look at things, I look at it in a very creative way, right? And I thought I remember, I had the written form down and I would just, send it to, friends and, different people that I just really wanted them to dive into the work, just before I even shopped it to publishers or to my literary agent. But I just, so many sensitivity reads, I want to say that too. But I remember a mentor was like, so how do you envision it? And the first thing I said, I want it beautiful. I want it beautiful. I said, honestly, I want it to be a coffee table book, because the thing about it is I know the information that I have in here, if it was just in a regular dictionary, it would be hard to digest, right? You wouldn't be engaged. And the information's too important. It's too powerful. It's too resourceful. And so I was like, I want it to be beautiful. And so I love to talk about, I call him my creative brother, but his name is Troy Lambert. And he is one of the main illustrators of the dictionary. And we worked for about a year, maybe a little under a year, of literally term by term going through to figure out what type of illustration we wanted to create. How can we bring out this term based on the usage note that I gave, the usage example that I gave? How can we also inform more historical relevance or connection to this term that's not written, but can be visually appealing, and more elements can come from just seeing it, right? We say a picture is, 1,000 words. So yeah, I think that's what it was. And I'm always grateful that I also had 3 other illustrators come on the project and bring on their beautiful work. Mark Urey, which is amazing because I worked with him in a show and he was like, absolutely. Shanae Benjamin, she's excellent, based in New York City. And Cassandra Fontaine, she's based on the West Coast in California. So and everyone identifies along this LGBTQI plus spectrum. So I think that was the other thing that I felt so empowered, that it's for us, by us, right? And we're celebrating through our lenses. And I think that's really important. And then the color, again, it had to be colorful. It had to be colorful. It had to be sassy. It had to be funny. It had to be, it had to be real. It needed that depth. And I just felt like with the colors, the illustrations, also the pride flags. That's another nuance that really brings this dictionary to life. Pride flags are more than what we think of with the traditional, what we know as the international 6-block, Roy G. Biv. Before that, it was 8 block colors, and his name was Gilbert Baker and the Baker flag. It was in 1978 that it was originally created. And he was actually charged by Harvey Milk to create something that really empowered, gay identity. And yeah, so in
I didn't know this.
1978,
This is awesome.
so yeah, the colors, so these colors, and it includes like a pink and a turquoise, that's the actual Gilbert flag. And then it moves into like the 6-color black, and then of course more pride, more color, or more color, more pride. What I think 2017 was based in Philly. They created adding the black and the brown stripe, right, to bring that diversity, inclusivity, and intersectionality into queer space. And then the progress flag, right, with also the black and brown stripe, and also the trans colors. So evolution, and it's all in the dictionary. But beyond that, there are also more pride flags based on identity, right? There's a butch flag, there's a lesbian flag, there's a lipstick lesbian flag, there's the bear flag, the leather community flag, there's of course non-binary flag, aromantic, neutros. I mean, there are so many pride flags, and again, I want everyone to feel heard and seen and loved, and I made sure to do the research and find it. So that I'm really excited about that.
No, and that's the thing though too, is that making sure that you do the research to honor people's identities and honor and treat them in a way that you would want to be treated and the way that they want to be treated is huge. I want to ask too about not just the formatting of the book and being of a dictionary, but the the history behind it too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the fact, I would love it if you could talk a little bit more of the decision process you made of what to include and what not to include. And I know you talked about everybody in there, but there are some terms in the book that offend people.
Yeah.
And what was that process like?
So, yes. So I think I was just charged to be able to document history, right? And I feel like there's a part of the dictionary that's really, really important called usage notes. And under usage notes, there is it's like this red, like alert, alert, right? And it says usage note. But basically it's telling you a few things. It's telling you the history of the word. It's saying, that this term was originated in this community and has been appropriated by, mainstream or the larger LGBTQI plus community. I know a lot of ballroom terms, it'll say this term originated from the ballroom culture, but has been appropriated by the larger LGBTQI plus community and mainstream, right? To show, like, to give credit where credit is due. That's very important. And then there's also terms to say, like, this term is commonly used, right, in, the transgender, non-binary, gender nonconforming communities, right? And then there's times where it says this term is considered a stereotype and derogatory, or this term is pejorative when it comes, or this term has a historical relevance of being, pejorative or derogatory, but has been claimed by some members of the community as, more of a self-proclamation, right? So I add those nuances because that's important, right? Because what I don't want to do, I don't want to create erasure, because we have to learn from our history. We have to know our history. So that way, again, we can evolve and grow and be a better, world, right? So I can't, it may be ugly, but I can't dismiss it. And I'm going to talk about race because, again, I'm Black. Like, we can't dismiss the origin of the ballroom scene. We can't dismiss the origin of, the Harlem Renaissance, right? And why that was created because of, like, racial tension and just racism and, oppression and marginalization, you know what I mean? And the same thing, not just on when it comes to, well, someone's race and ethnicity, but also someone's sexual orientation. I can't erase or gender identity. I can't, I would do a disservice to not be honest and have those conversations about Black trans women being killed and murdered. You know what I mean? I can't not have conversations about the exclusion of, people of color, whether they be Black, Hispanic, Asian, on these dating apps, no femmes, no fats, no femmes, no Blacks, no Asians, no Hispanics. I can't, that would be a disservice, right? Because I want to articulate the real experience, but I'm also in that I need to educate. I want to tell you this is what's happening. And then we as a whole need to educate and need to do better so that way we can eradicate these things, right? So yes, there are terms, there are situations that may be uncomfortable, but the truth of the matter is the struggle of someone who is gay or queer, bisexual or trans is the struggle, like Stonewall, you know what I mean? Like, it's a fight. It is a fight for civil rights. Let's just talk about Arkansas and trans and non-binary identities, youth not being able to get the affirming, well, in conversation and debate of not being able to get the affirming medication needed. Stop it. You know what I mean? So it's like, no, I'm okay. Let's have these conversations. You know, I'm not sugarcoating anything. This is a tool that celebrates, but it is a tool that empowers, but it's also a tool that acknowledges, you know, the trials, the challenges, the trauma, but this is a way for us to evolve, right? Because if we're not talking about it, then that could create, you know, this erasure, or, you know, putting us in a place where we're not moving forward. You know, so, you know, diving into those things that are words or events that may be uncomfortable, but I think are very valid and important, because I want to talk about this is that language is created because of an experience. You need to articulate an experience, right? So when we learn about language, we're also learning about history. We're learning about why this word came about to articulate this experience or identity or expression, right? So it's important to house these words so we understand our evolution.
Yes, I want that on a bumper sticker, a t-shirt, something about language is developed from our experiences. I think is created from our experiences, because I think that's so true. And that's one of the beautiful things about the English language, is that it's so malleable, and that often when you say something to somebody and it's maybe not a real word, they're like, oh no, I get what you mean. Or you can explain it and help, but then they become real words and become a part of our experiences and our culture and our world. And that this book is a great reflection of that. Before we turn it over to audience Q&A, I have to ask, and if you don't know, that's okay, but what is next? Where do you want to take all the rest of this research? Is there a dictionary point two? Is there, you know, a history book that you want to pick, like colloquialisms, that's a hard word to say, colloquialisms that, and you go a deep dive into them? What do you want to do with this knowledge now?
Well, I'm excited to announce that there will be a UK version. So the Queen's English is going across the pond, and we'll have a home in the UK. So I was actually diving into research within the UK LGBTQI plus culture, identities, and lifestyles, right? So that's been really rewarding. So that comes out, I think, fingers crossed, everything goes on. I just signed off. So, you know, like I just said, okay, send it. So hopefully it's, you know, hot in the press, you know, headed and getting printed, but it should be out in June of this year.
Hey, oh, congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
very exciting.
So I'm excited about that. And again, I'm very grateful for my publisher, like Penguin, Penguin Random House. I'm with Clarkson Potter, the imprint of Penguin Random House. And in the UK, I will be with Square Peg and Vintage, which is also part of Penguin Random House UK. So just really honored that, you know, Penguin has opened the doors for this type of literature, because yes, we understand there's going to be more, you know, gay and queer literature that's out, but you know, to really push an actual dictionary of these terms, I think is important. And I'm just really grateful that they saw the importance and has been behind me 100%.
Yay. No, good publishers, good editors, good agents, all of them are essential to a book. Books, as your story tells, are not written in a vacuum. A lot of people think that it's like some curmudgeon-y author writing on their typewriter, but that's not how they're created. That's not how they're given to the world.
Yeah,
And
you
so
do have those though. You you have those moments where you're like, I was like, what day is it? What day is it? You have those moments, but yeah, it takes a team. It absolutely takes a team.
Well, and that leads me into a really great question here, is what was the writing process like for you? At being such a creative and such a performer, what was that shift like?
You know,
Be a writer.
that is such a good question. I don't even know how to answer that, because it's crazy, because it was always in tandem. I was always doing both at the same time, and I needed both, right? So I needed my friends in my, you know, creative community, my performing arts community, my you know, musical community to feed into me, right? As far as like language, introducing me to, you know, friends or relatives or just other people that they think that I should connect with to, you know, learn and find and research more terms. So that has been my life for 15 years, like constantly being introduced to new people, because it's like word of mouth. It's like, oh, you're doing it. Okay, then I want you to talk to this person. Oh, and then that person introduced me to another person. And or just going to LGBT centers and just talking, or pride events and talking. So it's always been in tandem. But I think I got it because being a creative, there's structure, right? There's structure. There is like the vision, like the pre-production, right? How you're going to implement it. Then you're going actually in it, like you're in like tech, you know what I mean? Like you're so like in your writing, you've already had this research, and now it's like you're putting it all together. And then you're in that like, okay, now we're in, previews, right? So now that's when we're, building the book, like now it's the design phase and we're adding those elements. And then it's like performance mode. So I actually have always looked at, especially when I like started, once I had the writing done to a particular part, and then I started with my publisher, and we dived in, because we've been on this for about two years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like we've been together.
With a book like this, the design and everything.
Yeah, I mean, actually maybe a little bit more than 2 years. Yeah, I think more. But we've been on this for a nice journey. But I felt it. I felt it's like creating. If I was creating a new musical, right?
Yeah.
I always kind of attached this. I knew what to do. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, this is time to bring the team in to discuss this. I always just looked at it from that format. But it's funny because I also think maybe they won't say it, but I think like my editor and publishers were kind of like, what is she doing? But because I'm just a creative person, like I'm also very, if you see, I'm very detailed, and like in the visual aesthetic of things. And I just could see it, I understood it. And so I had to articulate that, like what I wanted. And again, I really appreciate them for just listening to the guidance and doing it, right? Because that's not always the case. So I really appreciate them for allowing me to visualize my dream and actually have it in a book.
I mean, you're preaching to the choir here of that. Like I everything you were saying, I completely understood, and I related to, and now it's making me like rethink how I look at books and theater, and how they might be more similar than I always thought. But so I love this other question here too. What has been the community's response like, and how did this book broaden your relationship with the community, LGBTQIA+, I assume?
Oh my gosh, can I tell you?
Yes, please.
How affirmed I feel. It's, of course, you're gonna, of course, your friends and your family, they're gonna get the book, you know what I mean? But so February 2nd, so now we're in April, the amount of accolades and praise is just outstanding. But I think I get so excited when I don't know the person, and then I get like this like inbox or like, message like with a picture of the book, and just hearing people's testimonies. Like, for instance, the other day, a mother, messaged me and said, I understand my trans son better. Like I will now understand him more and connect with him more in his community. And
That's
it's because of this.
Sorry.
No, but that's what I mean. And then when someone says, I feel seen, you know what I mean? Like I finally feel seen. And, and then those who are not in the community are very much like, thank you. I need this. I want to do better. I want to be an ally. It's just, I think that's it. And I'm on this journey, and honestly, I'm still so green. Like I don't know, but I'm just like, look, I just know it's important. I know I put my heart in it, and I know I won't settle until I feel that it has gotten the word of mouth and in the right hands. My goal for this book is that it gets in the right hands, because I want, just like I had my journey with this book, and like how, like, again, I said, I feel affirmed with who I am. I know who I am. My feet are planted in the ground, but that wasn't always the case. Yeah. But my journey with this book allowed that. And so if someone else can also feel that, then it's like, okay. You know, I think we all are here for a purpose, and this was one of mine, and I'm just so happy that I was gifted this task. And you know, and I do feel amazing that people are, you know, I'm not asking for validation, but I do feel good that I get that type of validation. You know what I mean?
Validation's good. Validation's good. Compliments are good. You might not go
Yeah.
looking for them, but they still feel great. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's great. It's like when, again, but this is the dictionary. Like, you know, no one feels like strangers to me anymore because of the amount of people I sat down with
Yeah.
and just had some really transparent, authentic conversations, right? So, and I like that. I like that someone can, I'm approachable, and you tell me, hey, you know, I either, you know, I want to be a better ally, or, you know, I feel seen, or this was a big one. Okay, so
Tell me.
random. So I was actually filming, and one of the actresses, I had gifted a book to her, and she's just so sweet. And another actress came in that day who was, you know, coming in, and she actually saw the book, and she came to me and she said, "You wrote this book?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "My friend literally was just telling me about this book because they felt like they used the book to come out as non-binary, as trans, right?" So I was like, whoa, you know, like, and someone told me this before. They were like, there's gonna be so many coming out stories. And I was like, really? You know, I didn't think about that. But that's beautiful. That makes me feel whole, because, you know, again, writing this dictionary affirmed me, and I was able to like fully be myself, and know that my identity is empowered and worth it, right? And valued.
Yes. Hell
Um,
yes.
so to know that others feel the same way, and that, you know, again, if anyone ever questioned like, who is this book for, it's for everyone. It's absolutely for everyone. It's for those in the community, because like you said, there were so many terms and words you didn't know, right? And it's because we are all different, you know, we come from different communities, right? So of course, maybe someone, you know, in the, you know, ballroom scene may not be hip to the leather community, and the leather community may not be hip to the lesbian community, and the you know, Black lesbian community may not be hip with the white gay community. You know what I'm saying? So it's like and we all have our own language. But so I think what I really loved is that now we have a resource that documents all of it, you know, as much as I could, at least, you know, and everyone's on a level plane. You know what
Yes.
I mean? Everyone's on a level plane. No one has hierarchy here.
No.
It's like the level plane of empowering identity. That's what it is. You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I want to ask these last two questions
Okay.
here. One of which you probably get a lot, but do you have a favorite word that you discovered? But I'd also like to twist that question a little bit and be like, maybe a favorite story associated with the word. If you don't want to pick like your favorite word, then that's okay too. But maybe
Yeah,
a really good story.
there's just so many words. I just like to play around with, to say, like, you know, the dictionary is full of, you know, femme queens, MBs, zucchinis, zaddies, daddies, boys, mommies, you know. I like to play around with that because it's full of all of that.
Fantastic. No, I love that.
Yeah.
So the last question that we ask here at Tattered Cover, and you've been so honest and vulnerable with us in this journey, and I think that the book naturally brings that out in you. So thank you for that. But interpret this question as you will. But what did this book, The Queen's English, teach you?
It taught me about myself. I
Yeah.
mean, absolutely. Like, I I am in my bio, proud Black, bisexual, biromantic, demisexual woman, you know. And it's like, I smile, you know, like, I feel affirmed. I feel here. I stand on the shoulders of Josephine Baker and Zora Neale Hurston, you know. I stand on the shoulders of, you know, Mother Octavia and Mother Crystal LaBeija. You know, I feel like I stand on the shoulders of Harvey Milk, I stand on the shoulders of, Gilbert Baker. I just feel I stand on the shoulders of so many amazing, Marsha P. Johnson. I stand on the shoulders of so many amazing LGBTQI plus individuals that have pushed forward for, equality and, liberation. And I feel like maybe this is my activism as well. So
That's yeah, that's no, but that it's so wonderful to see a human being so assured in themselves. It's inspiring and it floats off of you. So thank you for the book. Thank you for the interview. I really hate that it has to end. I could just go on for another hour about theater and shows and all the things that, because as viewers know, I'm also a theater nerd and that's my degree and everything. But I love that you've taken this artistic, beautiful project and explored another world while still remaining true to yourself and finding more of yourself. And thank you for helping others find themselves as well. I want to give you a chance to just remind people who you are, where they can find you online, and anything else you want to say before we end tonight.
Yes. So again, Chloe Davis, or Chloe O. Davis. Please come out and visit us at the Queen's English US. That's the website, but also the same at the Queen's English US on IG as well as Facebook. And I always like to say, buy a book, gift a book. I think that's the best thing to do, because it's like you need your own copy, and then it's great for you to gift a book to someone, because people aren't going to always want to buy it, but when you open it, it's a different experience. So I definitely say that. And also I want to say that I truly advocate for LGBTQIA plus youth homelessness, and for our young gay and queer people to get the resources and care that they need. So I also encourage you all listening, wherever you are, your local city, just to find out where those centers are, where those organizations are. And I just say donate, 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 volunteer, because they need us. And the Queen's English and myself, we stand on advocating for that. And so I just encourage everyone else to do the same.
Absolutely. Whether it's time or money that you have at the moment, donating either one of those to essential causes like LGBTQIA plus homelessness is very vital. So thank you for mentioning that. You can get your copies of Queen's English by opening them up and coming to a physical store and seeing them if you want to, or you can order them online at tatteredcover.com. We thank you for shopping locally and supporting local independent bookstores and keeping your money in your cities, because we wouldn't be here without you. We really wouldn't. And we just appreciate you so much. Chloe, if you'll stick around while I close this out here. I'm McKaylee with Tattered Cover Bookstore, here with Chloe Davis for her book, The Queen's English, which you can get today at tatteredcover.com. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy reading. Bye, all.
Bye.
And we're out.